we've ever done.
Yeah, we need the sheet.
Give him the sheets.
You have, oh, you gave her?
Yeah, you know.
And you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it this time.
Thank you. No locals. Just guests. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Marcy, are we on 12 or 13? 12 for sure. Okay, she's keep track. All right. Consensus is 12. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of November 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 9, entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. Text number 12, page 392. One thing, Zlatan, we don't put the sheets on the floor. Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, page 392, everyone set? Very good. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasima sudim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha raksasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha Raksasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha Raksasim asurim chaiva Prakatim mohinim shitaha. Anyone else want to try? Okay. Mogha asha, baffled in their hopes. Mogha karmanaha, baffled in fruit of activities. Mogha jnanaha, baffled in knowledge. Vichetasaha, bewildered. Raksasim, demonic. Asurim, atheistic. Cha, and eva, certainly. Prakatim, nature. Mohinim, bewildering. Shitaha, taking shelter of. Okay, time out. Change of weather has got me. Okay, not too bad. Translation. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Purport. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruit of pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brihad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, Yo veti bhautikam deham Krishnasya paramatmanaha sasarvasmad bahishkaryah Shrauta smarta vidhanataha mukam tasyavalokyapi sachelam snanam acharet. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take a bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Om jnana timirandasya jnananjana salakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this may sound familiar. I think I dealt with this verse last night, those who were here last night. Somehow I was inspired to delve into this. So this is some pretty heavy statements here from Krishna regarding those who, as said in the previous verse, deride him, avajananti. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So the basic principle of life in this world, in the material, in the conditioned state, is one of ignorance. We really don't know what is what. In the human form, we're limited by our senses, by our mind, by our intelligence. Clearly the senses are limited. The history of science is one of coming to a firm conclusion and then having to throw it out after a certain point. And always discovering new things. Every doctor will tell you that, yes, we know some things about the brain, but it's really a really big mystery about how that brain works and all the thoughts are going on and things like that. So there are various barriers to our understanding the truth about what's going on. And if we don't have access to a source of infallible knowledge, then we're really groping in the dark. And so that's what the Vedic culture is said to provide. This idea of a source of knowledge beyond doubt. It's something that in the West we immediately say, wait a minute, I don't know, isn't that just another kind of mythology that's created in order to do this and that? So that's really the essential point, is to come to the conclusion that there are certain sources of knowledge that we can really trust, and especially for these ultimate questions and things which we really have no access to. One of Krishna's names is Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja, which means it's a combination of three words. Sanskrit language is very interesting. Now, you may have heard the word Janma, like Janmashtami, like the birth of Krishna. So the Ja in this word, it stands for birth, or to generate, to create. And what is the Akshaja? Aksha is the eyes, which stands for all the senses. So much we get through our eyes, the reading and things. When we perform some research, scientific research, so much of it is observation, right? So Akshaja is knowledge born from the material senses and mind. But Ada means down, to push down, to defeat. So Krishna defeats that, meaning that altogether it's transcendental. He's transcendental. Transcendental, if you look it up in the dictionary, it really means beyond the purview of the material mind and senses, of the mind and senses. So how could we know about those things? We can't unless we get some access to knowledge that is beyond our limitations. This is where faith comes in. Now we take that kind of knowledge all the time in our everyday life. We don't know, how things are working. Even like how's the power being generated? We may know, okay, there's some power thing, but how's it actually working? Unless you're an engineer and technician, but you rely on it all the time. When you drive on the street, there's a system of lights, right? And we have faith that those lights, that when it says green here, is red here. You know, we don't take it, right? We just take it for granted. You know, and when that trust is betrayed, our whole world can be shaken, right? When things that we thought were trustworthy aren't sources of knowledge, and it happens all the time on the material side. So, what Srila Prabhupada came, he was a representative of a line of spiritual masters and disciples who had been enlightened by knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita and other sources like Bhagavad Purana, and these revealed scriptures they're called. And that's why you have this idea of a Paurusheya. A Paurusheya literally means superhuman. A Purusha is the word for human being. A Paurusheya means that which is beyond the human source. So so Krishna is here is directly dealing with that subject matter. God is beyond our purview. He has his own world, you know. But here he says, when I appear in the human form, in the previous verse, Manushim Tanamashatam, then those who have no access to this knowledge, who have no faith in me, they deride me, or they don't believe in me, you see. And why? Because they've, as he says in the present verse, Mohinim Prakriti Mohinim Shita. Prakriti Mohinim Shita means they've taken shelter, they are focused on the bewildering energy. Prakriti Mohinim means this material energy. That's their whole compass of knowledge. When your knowledge is bounded by what you can understand with your mind and intelligence and senses, or someone else's material mind and senses, then you're stuck. That's Prakriti Mohinim Shita. And the conclusions you come to can be way off the mark. Even the existence of the soul cannot be proven by any scientific means. There's all kinds of indications of that. But there's no real proof. You can't weigh it, you can't see it, you can't measure it, you know. So how can we get knowledge of these things? So Krishna begins to explain at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita that without the concept of the soul, the Atma, transmigration, then the whole world has no meaning. Why is one child born, you know, at the same day, in the same locale? One is born wealthy, one is born poor. One is born with some congenital disease, one not. Is it all just a big throw of the dice? Is everything just happening by accident? That's what the demons say in the 16th chapter. This is what they say. Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishwaram aparasparasambuddham kimanyat kamahoitika. It's like there's no ultimate truth, there's no foundation, there's no God in control, there's no supreme intelligence. Everything is happening just by the mixture of the atoms and everything. Kimanyat. What Krishna is imitating the demons. What other cause can there possibly be? You know, show me God. Where is your God? You know? So this is the attitude of the Rakshasas and the Asuras. Now the result of that mentality, Krishna is describing here in summary. Moghasha, all their hopes are frustrated. What can they hope? Everyone hopes for peace and prosperity, a nice life, you know, pleasure, you know, and for eternity. No one wants to get sick and die, you know. So their hopes are definitely going to be frustrated. The hopes for happiness. Their activity. Just look at this world, you know. This world is rapidly being destroyed by rampant greed and lust and all the things you read about right in the Bhagavad Gita. It's just they're being poisoned. I mean, I read. Did you know the insects are dying? I mean, you could. The evidence is, you know, you can get some direct. I mean, people say, "Oh, that's good," because they bother you. No, we need them. We need these insects for pollinating the. Everyone knows the bees. There's a problem with the bees, but it's not just the bees. With all of this air pollution, do you want to live in Delhi? Does anyone? I mean, I could not breathe when I visited Delhi. You have to go to Delhi to go to Vrindavan. Generally, fly in. You know, I swear, I would take a full-on gas mask. I bought it online, the one that you see. You know, like People get scared. They say, what has this guy got a gas mask? What is he about to do? It's just self-defense. They had a news story. It's so serious, they shut, the United Airlines won't fly there. Now, why is that? Because you have millions and millions of people doing, driving the cars. They have regulations, but it's all corruption. They won't, enforce them. And gradually it becomes unlivable. So why is that? Because everyone, this is called mogasha and moga karmana. The activity produces the negative effect. Prahlad Maharaj said it in this wonderful phrase, dukaushadam tadapi dukam, which means you have a problem and then you have a solution to the problem. But the solution to the problem causes more problems, and sometimes worse than your original problem. Look at the pharmaceutical companies. They don't want to cure you. The last thing they want to do is for you to be cured. They want to give you medicine that you will have to take for the rest of your life. And they know it's going to produce the side effects, which you'll have to take some other pills. So before you long, you have this long, which costs thousands of dollars. That's called asurim rakshasim. That's the demonic. Any normal doctor, person will want to try to prevent a disease, and if you have a disease, to cure the disease, not to treat you for the rest of your life. This is the result of deriding, in the basic principle, deriding the existence of God, or just paying lip service, or not having access or faith in this kind of information. So, and the key phrase is taking shelter of the external energy. What does that mean? It means that whole focus is in the material side. There's really no access to the spiritual side of life or understanding. So now, in the next verse, Krishna talks about the contrast, Mahatma versus the Rakshasas and the Asurim. The Rakshasas and the Rakshasas are literally cannibals, man-eating cannibals. That's the Rakshasas, demonic, and Asurim he defines here as atheistic. In contrast to that are the religious. What is it? Mahatmas, the great souls. So what is the distinction? They have faith. They have faith in God. They have faith in the representatives and in the books that are given, that are purely presented without distortion. And that's what Prabhupada has given us here. And it's been proved. It's been proved that you can take that those who take up this process of Krishna consciousness as given, your whole life changes. Your whole heart changes. You feel the presence of the Lord in your life, and these tendencies, which we all have, to fall under the modes of nature, of greed and lust and anger and violence, to whatever degree or not, is gone. It's like the fog, lifting at the time of day. Because you're in contact with the divine chiefly through sound. The process works. So this Krishna is giving a very nice, and everything's very concise here because the battlefield there's only a certain amount of time, So he's speaking very concisely here, and he's saying those who don't accept my divinity, even when I appear as a human being, they're fools, mudhas, and their life is frustrated. It's frustration. So we shouldn't fall into that category. Any discussion on this point? Okay, we're going to go on to text 13, where he gives the contrast. I think I read this part of this purport. Mahatmanas tamam parta daivim prakatimashita Pajantyananya manaso Gyatva bhutadimabhyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, or divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul or Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma, or great soul, develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. So this is the contrast. The real key is understanding what's the difference between the Daivi Prakriti and the Mohini Prakriti, or the divine energy and the bewildering material energy. So bewildering material energy we're very familiar with. We're so familiar with it, we're like swimming in it like a fish. Fish doesn't know what water is. Never heard of it. Because you're always in it. So our experiences with this material energy, meaning that this is life. This is, we live like it. But when we read Bhagavad Gita, we understand, this is a certain category of energy. And it's nice to analyze, okay, the basic principles as we learned in the 7th chapter: solid matter, liquids, gases, radiant energy, space, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are the 8 elements, separate elements of the material energy. But Krishna immediately says in the 7th chapter, aparayam, this is the apara, this is the lower or material energy called the mohini, bewildering energy. But there's a higher energy called para prakriti, and that's us. This is all the material world. That's the spiritual energy. Aparayam itastramnyam prakritim vidyame param jiva bhuta mahamaho yayedam dayate jagat. That's comprised of the spirit souls, atmas. So we are by nature spiritual, but we're surrounded by these material energies. This is our incompatible situation. This is why we can never find a place of satisfaction here. We are, deep inside, we remember, although vaguely, our nature as Satchidananda, eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. But in this material world, we can never attain that state, because the body is holding us back. We're temporary, certainly, as bodies. We're full of ignorance, a million things we don't know. And we're never fully blissful. We try to get, a little sense gratification, reaching for that, but it crashes. And then there's so much misery. Sometimes, there's no more enjoyment. It's depression. Far, far from Satchidananda. But that's who we actually are as spiritual beings. So this is the material world, a combination of spiritual and material energies. The spiritual world, all spirit, not a tinge of matter. Spiritual earth, spiritual fire, spiritual water. The elements are there. When we speak of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, there's the cows, there's the land, and he's doing so many things. Well, that means there has to be some spiritual land, some spiritual water. The Yamuna is flowing. How does that work? This is the reflection. That's the original. All of this is a big illusory world that's here for us to facilitate our forgetfulness of Krishna, because that's what we wanted, so we could imitate it. But to take shelter or to become enlightened means to move toward the Mahatma stage. And that means taking shelter of the divine energy. How do we do that? By the facilities that have been given to us. Chiefly the transcendental sound. The transcendental sound, beginning with Krishna's name, is the portal, is the loophole in this world by which we can focus our mind and take shelter of that internal energy. And that means a whole different way of living, a different way of seeing ourselves and this world and others. Ultimately, the great Mahatmas, they see everything as divine because it's all connected to Krishna. This material energy is Krishna's energies. So we don't just see the cars and the trees and the other people. We see them as connected to God, connected to Krishna. That makes the whole world become sacred. But you can't see it as that if you're trying to exploit it. You can only see it when your consciousness says, so let me engage what I can of it in the service of Krishna. Beginning with my own body. What do I have? I have the words, I have my intelligence, my strength, you know. And that's why it says surrender. You know, the last thing you want to do is surrender. Who wants to surrender? You know, what comes to mind? The Japanese surrendering, the Indians surrendering to. But there's no other way of putting it. Yes, Prabhu.
What's the difference between Atman and Mahatma?
Okay, well, Atma, Maha-Atma. You see the synonym there? Maha-Atmana. An Atma simply means the soul. It doesn't matter, you can be in a dog body, you can be a demon, you're a soul, you're a spirit soul. That's never taken from you. Is it? So the Atmas are all eternal. But a Maha-Atma is a designation given a great soul, one who is devotee. The symptoms are given in the next verse. Always chanting His glories, endeavoring, bowing down, surrendered soul. It's all a question of consciousness, really. You know, the Duratma, the Duratma, you know, Duratma means not great soul, not so great souls. And what do? Well, we read in the 16th chapter. You know, we just go outside. You know, I mean, most people are innocent. They're not sworn enemies of God. Those are the real, they're just confused. But the idea is that to be a great soul means to 100% to be connected to Krishna. And every breath, every thought is one of, you know, how can I serve Krishna? How can I glorify Him? How can I give others this opportunity? That's the real Mahatma. The English word, saint. A saint. So how can we, you know, is that for us, or do we just regard the saint? Well, he's a saint. I'm no saint. You know, people say, well, I'm not a saint, right? Well, that's the ideal we should strive for, you know, and it's possible to do that. All right, let's go on, because these two verses go together. Text 14 also. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dvidharvataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Purport: the Mahatmas cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. Now, Srila Prabhupada, we should know that he was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi before he became a devotee, before he surrendered to his spiritual master. So he's dealing with some of that here. You know, it's not just some designation, you have to have the qualities. The Mahatma's symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaging in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. Yeah, this side. Just set up here. You can take that and bring it, because that's the ladies' side. We observe a little. Yeah, there you go. There you go. You're all set. Thank you. You're fine. He has no other business. He's always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he's not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising His holy name. We're on page 395. 395, first paragraph. Praising His holy name, His eternal form, His transcendental qualities, and His uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahma Jyoti, is not described as a Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing and chanting about Krishna, not a demigod or human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and Smaranam, remembering him. Shravanam means hearing, Kirtanam chanting about Vishnu or Krishna, and Smaranam remembering him. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any of the 5 transcendental rasas. 5 rasas are Shanta ras, peaceful ras. You don't actually do anything, you're just always meditating on Krishna. Dasya ras, some active service. This is the basis of bhakti. You regard yourself as an eternal servant of Krishna. Friend, Sakya ras. That's intimate. Only in Goloka Vrindavan can you have that friendship of Krishna. Vatsalya ras, parental ras, like Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. Very exalted, intense love. Who loves more than the mother, the child? And finally, the Madhurya ras, or conjugal ras, as a gopi, or as a queen of Krishna. So these are the 5 rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything, in the service of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. I don't know if you realize, this is Ekadashi today. And we've been fasting. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, or great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result. As described in the 2nd verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari, in any position and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. And it's also good for the ladies. Ladies can do it too. They can become Mahatmas. So there's this, in Satatam Kirtiyanto Mam, Prabhupada would quote this verse when he was challenged, what is all this chanting and dancing? I don't read anything like that in the Vedas. Aren't you supposed to be meditating? And Prabhupada says, here it says, Satatam Kirtiyanto Mam, always chanting. You see? This is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So the Hare Krishna chanting in congregation or individually on the beads, this is a serious, complete form of yoga. This is, it's not just a concession for the modern age. It's a perfect form that's given by Krishna himself in his form as Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it works if we actually but we have to perform it with drita vrata, with firm determination. Because we're so conditioned that we don't have the determination even to do the easy process of chanting and dancing. But if we understand the art, and if we actually take shelter not only of Krishna but of a spiritual master, then we can break through the reluctance and the bad habits that we have called conditioning, and actually experience the great benefit of this process. And Prabhupada showed. He proved it by coming to America, the last place on earth you would think to come in order to propagate a yoga system, like that. But he showed, and he had faith in the holy name. And that's how he started everything. A little bongo drum, and he went out in the park and he chanted Hare Krishna for 3 hours. And the energy he generated, and because his purity, determination, he got his little group of followers there who are ready to try it. If you try all kinds of drugs, well, why not try Hare Krishna? That's really what was going on. And those who tried it, they gave up all the other drugs. They would print a little pamphlet, stay high forever. Because that's the milieu they were in. And it worked. Come on, you had thousands of devotees, thousands of disciples. And they weren't just sticking around because of his words, they were sticking around because they experienced the joy and the peace and the safety and everything else. So the process is real. And the benefits are enormous. You know, Prabhupada is always talking about, oh, this is the pure devotion, you know, 100%, you know. Well, when we think, well, if you come to the point, you know, just think logically, if you come to the point where you're really getting pleasure from chanting Hare Krishna, then, you know, and you can chant in your head too. I mean, we're enjoying to chant our 16 rounds, but you can remember that way, you know, and it's giving you great pleasure. Why would you stop? It's not like you're using up anything. It's not like, well, I ran out of money, so I can't chant in Hare Krishna anymore. No, it's completely free. It's completely free. And then to realize you've just opened up a channel where you can go on enjoying ad infinitum. We have so many accounts of these great devotees who are experiencing this, you know, Anandam Buddhivardhanam, Lord Chaitanya says. Anandam Buddhivardhanam means the ever-increasing ocean of bliss by this chanting. Well, where do you find that in the material plane? Never. You get a little sense gratification, the senses get worn out, your money is worn out, you know, you can't do it, you know? Or it produces some horrible result, you know, the most intense pleasure produces the most intense miseries. Let's face it, on the material plane. But in the spiritual, oh boy, they're trying to... on the spiritual level, there's no loss or diminution. You know, this is what we keep hearing from all the Mahatmas, and they're teaching us. They're not trying to exploit us. They're trying to give us the greatest jewel. So we should take it. Yeah, there's certain things to overcome, and let's face it, you may not be able to do it in this lifetime, but there's no loss or diminution. If you accept the basic principle that we're eternal, this is just one short chapter in a very long book. So then, okay, so we'll continue in the next life. We should try as hard as we can in this life to succeed. But if we don't, then we can continue next life. Where do you find that in a material level? Where are our luminaries, our so-called successful people going to be in the next life? Where is Bill Gates going to be? Where is this guy going to be? The billionaires. Are they really going to be billionaires in their next life? I don't think so. You know, you can't take it with you. But in Krishna consciousness, you take it all with you, because it's adhering to the soul. So the proposition is very good. And if we simply accept Krishna's words in this Bhagavad Gita, we'll realize the logic of surrendering to Krishna, taking Krishna consciousness seriously. Okay, I'm stopping. I won't hang you anymore. Yes, Marcy has a question.
The time between when Krishna was here to the time Chaitanya arrived, were the people chanting?
Well, there's always chanting going on. Not in the congregational chanting with the singing and dancing so much. More meditative, you see, or internal chanting. Just like we find Valmiki. I don't know if you've heard of Valmiki, the Ramayana, the story of Lord Ram. Maybe. So that was way before. That was in the Treta Yuga, I believe. Thousands and years, many thousands of years before Krishna. So Valmiki was I think a criminal. He was some kind of thief. But someone wanted him to chant Ram, the name Rama. Very powerful, meaning just Rama, 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 Rama. And he said, I'm not going to chant Rama. Would you like to? Yeah, please, sit on this side, if you would. No, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. That's the lady's side. We're going to start putting up a red marker here. Yeah, that's it. We're going to go to 8:15. So he wouldn't chant Rama. So they said, okay, chant death. That's more like it. Mara, 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 Mara. So he's chanting Mara, 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 but he's actually chanting Rama. You see? The sound itself. So by chanting that, he became a great devotee. And he wrote the Ramayana from Valmiki. So the chanting has been going on since time immemorial. But the special gift is the congregational chanting with the dancing and the whole thing, Because that's what we can do in this age. I mean, we do the japa, but that's essential. But the real Yuga Dharma is chanting and dancing. And we just read at the beginning of the chapter, Prabhupada referred to it, second verse, Susukam kartamabhyam, Rajavidya Rajaguyam, Pavitram Midamam Padamamba. This is the king of knowledge, it's the most confidential, but as Susukam, it is easily and happily performed. That's really what, you know, sometimes, in the early days, it was a lot of chanting going on, a lot more than today, outside. They didn't have much to do. You know, the temples and rudimentary. And so they would go out all morning, and then they come back for lunch, go out all afternoon, come back for dinner, go out till 1 o'clock in the morning. Then they get up at 7, you know. They had no idea what Mangala, and then they'd start over again. Gradually, Prabhupada started the morning program. But still, many hours of chanting. And the movement was exploding. Everyone, sometimes I think we should just go back to those days. You know. But, so the process works. It's very, very purifying, and you discover your real nature. It's all covered over now. It's like you're in a room and it's been sitting there for 100 years and it's all dusty. You can't even see the walls practically. And you have to big cleanse, and then you can see what's really there. All right, let's continue with our reading of Krishna book. Krishna book is a summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we happen to be, oh boy, this is giving me a hard time. So, give me a second here. Okay. We are in the Rasa dance. We're still in the Rasa. I think we're still in the introduction. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. The Rasa dance, introduction. So Krishna is he's kind of teasing, you know. He plays his flute, famously, plays his flute, and all, this is in the Sharad season, it's right now, practically. The month began, when the Kartik began, a month ago or so, that's when the Rasa dance takes place. So he plays his flute, and all the gopis come running out. They're so much in love with him, and they want to serve him, you know, in the way that he wants to be served. It's all selfless, the whole thing is selfless. So, when they came out, instead of saying, okay, let's have the Rasa dance, he kind of tested them. And he's preaching what the duty of a woman is, not to, you know, leaving your husbands and your children. What's going on? You know? You've come out, it's very dangerous, you've seen, you've seen in the night, now go back. You know, so he's seeing if they're going to go back. So in this way, Krishna explained the duty of a woman. The duty of a wife is to take care of the children, be very nice to the husband and the husband's family, and like that. Not to run around in the middle of the night with strange men. In this way, Krishna explained the duty of a woman. He also stressed the point of serving the husband. Quote, even if he is not a very good character, or even if he is not very rich or fortunate, or even if he is old or invalid on account of continued diseases, whatever her husband's condition, a woman should not divorce her husband if she actually desires to be elevated to the higher planetary systems after leaving this body. Besides that, it's considered abominable in society if a woman is unfaithful and goes searching for another man. Such habits will deter a woman from being elevated to the heavenly planets, and the results of such habits are very degrading. A married woman should not search for a paramour, for this is not sanctioned by the Vedic principles of life. If you think that you are very much attached to me and you want my association, I advise you not to personally try to enjoy me. It is better for you to go home, simply talk about me and think of me, and by this process of constantly remembering me and chanting my names, you will surely be elevated to the spiritual platform. There's no need to stand near me. Please go back home. So what's going on here? The Prabhupada says, the instruction given herein by the Lord to the gopis was not at all sarcastic. Such instructions should be taken very seriously by all honest women. The chastity of women is specifically stressed herein by the Lord. Therefore, this principle should be followed by any serious woman who wants to be elevated to a higher status of life. Krishna is the center of all affection for all living creatures. When this affection is developed for Krishna, one surpasses and transcends all Vedic injunctions. So now Prabhupada is saying, but. He didn't give the but. This was possible for the gopis because they saw Krishna face to face. This is not possible for any women in the conditioned state. Unfortunately, sometimes a rascal, following the philosophy of monism or oneness, very irresponsibly takes advantage of this rasa lila to imitate the behavior of Krishna with the gopis, entice many innocent women, and mislead them in the name of spiritual realization. Of course, this has happened, and I think it's happening to this day in India. As a warning, Lord Krishna has herein hinted that what was possible for the gopis is not possible for ordinary women. Although a woman can actually be elevated by advanced Krishna consciousness, she should not be enticed by any impostor who says that he is Krishna. She should concentrate her devotional activities in chanting and meditating upon Krishna, as is advised herein. One should not follow the men called sahajiyas, the so-called devotees who take everything very lightly. So just to make Prabhupada's point here, Krishna says at the end of the chapter we're reading, chapter 9, Mami parta vipashritya yepisyu papayonaya striyo vaishyas tata shudras tepiyanti paramgatim. That anyone who takes shelter of me, whether the low-born shudras or, or merchants or sinful or women, anyone will come to me, will attain perfection. There's no bar. So that's just make it clear. Now, when Krishna spoke in such a discouraging way to the gopis, they became very sad, for they thought that their desire to enjoy the rasa dance with Krishna would be frustrated. Thus they became full of anxiety. Out of great sadness, the gopis began to breathe very heavily. Instead of looking at Krishna face to face, they bowed their heads and looked at the ground, and they began to draw various types of curved lines on the ground with their toes. They were shedding heavy tears, and their cosmetic decorations were being washed from their faces. The water from their eyes mixed with the kumkum on their breasts and fell to the ground. They could not say anything to Krishna, but simply stood there silently. By their silence, they expressed that their hearts were grievously wounded. The gopis were not ordinary women. In essence, they were on an equal level with Krishna. They are his eternal associates. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, they are expansions of the pleasure potency of Krishna, and as his potency, they are non-different from him. Although they were depressed by the words of Krishna, they didn't like to use harsh words against him. Yet they wanted to rebuke Krishna for his unkind words, and therefore they began to speak in faltering voices. They did not like to use harsh words against Krishna because he was their dearmost, their heart and soul. The gopis had only Krishna within their hearts. They were completely surrendered and dedicated souls. Naturally, when they heard such unkind words, they tried to reply, but in the attempt, torrents of tears fell from their eyes. Finally, they managed to speak. And what they said will be revealed tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now, you can come down from your trance, and let's get everything packed away. So.
They act like I'm their servant.
Well, you know, that's a very high punishment. He's the servant of the devotees.
Yeah, that's right.
Servant of the servant.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Dravida Prabhu Srila Divine Grace Srila Prabhu Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Radhakun Giri Govardhan Jai Sindanda Jai Navadip Mayapur Dhan Jai Jagannath Puri Dhan Jai Gam Gamini Jai Yamuna Jai Tulsi Devi Jai Bhakti Devi Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Samveda Bhaktivinoda Jai. All glory to the Son of God. All glory to the Son of God. All glory to the Son of God. All glory to the man of God. You got it. How about you? Is that good? Sir? Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Kirtana Ganana Ganapatau Premamrita Vanidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Tau Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Prabhu Premamritam Vanidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya Karo Nimar Karamu Pujito Chaitanya Kripa Bharau Bhuvi Bhuva Bhara Tarakau Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Sri Jiva Gopalakau Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Sriji Bhagavadgita Krishna Kirtana Gana Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Paramu Prema Metamani Veera Veera Jana Priya Priya Karo Nirma Pujitam Chaitanya Kripa Bharau Sri Chaitanya Kripa Bharau Bhuvi Bhuva Marava Antarakau Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Sriji